Hello, and thank you for joining us back for our BNI San Diego podcast. I am beyond excited, elated, the most beyond of you can imagine. I am actually privileged to be sitting next to, or rather on screen, one of my three top heroes in BNI. And his name is Frank Raffele. And Frank Raffele is the executive director of the Mid-Hudson Valley in New York. Frank, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, man. Great to be here. Great to see you.
Frank, so tell our listeners a little of your pedigree. You've been in BNI now, what, 30 plus years?
Yeah, over 30 years in BNI. When I first got involved, BNI was only in the United States, and it was in about 30 or 35 states at that time. About a year or so after I got involved, it expanded to Canada. And then about a year after that, it went to the UK, and then it kind of went around the world from there. So it's been amazing to see it go from being just a United States thing to now in 79 countries with, what are we, 350,000 members or something like that, just crazy numbers. So, and I've been very lucky to have been kind of part of that growth where I've gone out to different countries around the world. I've been throughout Asia and Europe and different places and helping national directors and executive directors and leaderships and doing leadership development and things like that. So it's been really wonderful to be part of that growth, see what is happening, the difference it's made with people all around the world. So
And not only you, but I know family has been involved. For our listeners, many of you remember, gosh, it was probably episode 50, somewhere in the episode in the 50s. We had Frank's younger, and I'm going to say it because she always tells me to say it, Frank's much younger sister, Sandy Raffele Donovan, who's one of my favorites. I call her Tink just because she reminds me of Tinkerbell, who is also an executive director in BNI.
yeah,
So
she's
it's a
like,
family thing for you guys.
yeah, I got first involved in BNI, and then actually my father was up here. He came to a BNI meeting with me. It was like one of my first ones in my region I just purchased. And he just said, "This is a great idea." And we talked, and he just said, "Maybe we should do this down in Florida." And so we went down and talked to my sister, and she said she definitely wanted to be involved. And she started Palm Beach County, Florida after that, and she's had that for like 30 years now. So yeah, she's been very successful executive director down in Florida. And so it's been in the Raffele family blood is BNI. So it's been there and it's been great and made a lot of good contacts. And I've been lucky that, I got involved. And it's funny, when I first got involved, I had just finished I just been writing my first book, which was called Successful Business Networking, and finished that. And Ivan wrote the foreword for that. And then a few years later, Ivan and I decided to write a book together. And then we asked Hazel to come in on it. And in the end, the title ended up being Business Networking and Sex, Not What You Think. And basically it was about men and women and how they network and conduct business differently in terms of gender. So sexually meant gender. And so it was a matter of, we kind of did a lot of research on that. It took over 4 years to write that book. And it was a pretty amazing experience to work both with Ivan and Hazel, who were like, Ivan's a very good friend and Hazel's like my sister. So all good.
It was a huge success. I love it. Our members love it. Well, terrific. Well, again, thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to this topic because this one's near and dear to my heart. And the topic is setting appropriate expectations. So when I first came into BNI 19 years ago in Tucson, Arizona, right? And I started attending meetings and I wanted to go out and start to share BNI with people. So I started to what we see a lot of new people do. You do you throw up on people about BNI. And the unfortunate thing that I used to do is when inviting someone in, I would look at someone who was very successful and I would immediately say, "Oh my gosh, you're going to kill it when you come into BNI." So the expectation was I've already set the bar really high, like, hey, come in and you're going to be making money and the money's going to be flying day one. Well, obviously we learned that's very inappropriate expectations. So I'm excited today, Frank, to talk to you because you do some amazing things in your region with helping our new referral partners when they come into BNI set appropriate expectations.
Yeah, I think it's really important that expectations are set on the chapter side as well as the members side.
Hmm.
And this has got to be addressed right up front to make sure everybody's on the same page. So when somebody comes new into BNI, whatever somebody said to them to come into it, like you were saying, that is they may come in and they may have this, oh, I'm going to come in and I just, sit in this meeting and people just give me referrals. And we realize that there's a process to this. It takes a little longer to that. So to me, it's really important when a new member comes in is to really say, okay, how can we best help them? And so the first thing, and what I tell people is, if you really want to be successful in BNI, okay, the first thing is put BNI to the side. Forget about BNI. I want you to focus on your business. And I want you to tell me, if I could wave my magic wand and I could, poof, make your business exactly what you want it to be when it's all grown up, what does that look like?
Ooh.
So right now, if your business is exactly what you want, what does that look like? And put that vision in your head. Now, is that vision 2, 3, 5, 15 years from now? I don't know. But I want you to know what that vision is, because that kind of keeps you clear of where you want to go with your business. So my next question to you is, okay, where do you want to be 3 to 5 years from now? Maybe it's that vision. Maybe it's a step towards that vision in terms of going forward. And now, once you know that, once you say, well, this is what I'm going to look like, it's going to be just me, or I'm going to have 8 locations, I'm going to have 35 employees, whatever it is going to be, what is the vision you have? Then my question to you is, okay, now my question to you is, that vision that you have, that you want to accomplish, what part of that is that you want BNI to give you? Because until you have strategically planned your vision for your business, then you don't know how to use BNI yet.
Hmm.
Right? Because BNI is not just like a thing that you do. It's part of the marketing strategy of your business. It is the word of mouth marketing referral department of your business. So what you have to do is saying, okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's where I want to grow to. So here's the next 3 years in terms of sales revenue where we want to get. Okay, great. So that's what you want to do. So what part of that do you want BNI to give you? Right? And then you have to be more strategic and sit down and work that out with your director in your region of what exactly do I want to do? And we do this with people in our region. We have a strategic planning process that we bring them to really make sure they understand that. So they come in, we do that. Now they have the vision going forward. And now they're ready to go and they want to be a great member. And I say, okay, and we do kind of our interview with them and sit down, their orientation. And I'll say to my member, okay, look, here's what I want to do. I want to talk about expectations. I want you to know what our expectations or a chapter are as you of a good member. Okay, because obviously BNI, we are a bottom line results driven organization. If you are not making money in BNI, then BNI is not working for you.
So true.
So we have to fix that. It's like, I'm a big believer in chambers of commerce. I think they're fantastic organizations. You should be a member of one if you're not. They're great, but they're there for you to network and kind of build your brand. They're not necessarily there for you to get referrals and to make money from the chamber. You may, but that's not their focus. And that's not how they measure their success. The opposite in BNI, in my opinion, we only measure our success by if you're making money and the success that you're having, right? So it's very focused on that. So we want you to make sure that's going to happen. So when we're coming in, we want to be able to start to give you referrals and you give it to us. And in BNI, we give qualified referrals to each other. I'm going to give you my definition of a qualified referral. Okay.
Please.
A little long. Here it is. A qualified referral in BNI means I have already spoken with that person and they said, yes, they would take a phone call or an in-person appointment with you to discuss business. So basically what that means is when I give you a referral, okay, there's a person expecting your phone call right now. They're waiting for you to call them. Right? So either make an appointment or talk to them on the phone. Doesn't mean it's a done deal. It might be a done deal, but it doesn't mean that. It just means I've already spoken with that person. Now, if I've already spoken with that person, it means I had to say some pretty darn good things about you, right? How fantastic and wonderful and great you are. I've had to have done that. So when I give you that referral, if you don't call them today or tomorrow, if you forget to call them by next week, if when you call them, or you change the appointment with them, and then you tell them you're going to stop by their place and you don't do it, or you're going to put a proposal, if you don't deliver in this process, you don't just hurt your reputation, you hurt my reputation.
Hmm.
So what we tell people in BNI is you should never, never refer anyone in BNI or not in BNI until you know them well enough. until you have trust and confidence in them, until you know their character and their competency, right?
How
The
do we
character,
go about doing that?
yeah, the character is the type of person that they are. Are they honest, trustworthy, a person of good business ethics? And competency is how good they are at what they do. And you knew that by talking to them, by talking to people that use them, testimonials about them, etc. Once you know those two things, you'll be ready to refer them out. But so you think about it, okay, so we need to do that. And if I'm saying to you, you need to know them well enough, then that's going to take some time. So our expectations of you in giving referrals in your first 3 to 4 months is we expect that you're going to give in the first 3 to 4 months 0 referrals. Nothing. You're muted, Ed.
Oh, you mean to tell me that I'm coming into BNI, that's a referral organization, and my expectation should be not to give referrals?
Absolutely. In your first 3 to 4 months, I don't want you to worry because people come in, they get uptight about, well, I don't know, man. I don't know these people. How can I? Don't worry about it. In your first 3 to 4 months, we expect you to give no referrals. You want to know why? Because you don't know the people in the chapter well enough. And we don't want you to give referrals, and we don't want you to risk your reputation until you know them well enough.
Oh, and
right?
I love that term that you used, risk your reputation.
Yeah.
Right? Because
every time you refer somebody out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And at the same time, I say, look, let me look at the opposite side of that. When you come in as a member in the first 3 to 4 months, I want you to expect to receive 0 referrals in the first 3 to 4 months. Because for the same reason, people in the chapter don't know you well enough yet. Now, will you give a referral in the first 3 to 4 months? Probably. Will you get a referral first 3 to 4 months? Probably. Don't worry about it. BNI is about building a long-term successful business. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme in the next 12 months. This is if you want to really grow your business in the next 1, 3, 5, 20 years, this is what you want to be involved in because you're going to build a bigger and stronger network and more word of mouth out there, and you're going to have a bigger network to refer you business that's going to keep growing if you're doing it right. So that's really important. So the question is then, okay, but if we're doing 3 to 4 months, how do I make that happen? How do I make these relationships happen so they know my character, my competence?
Yep.
And we do that through what we call one-to-ones in BNI. When we do it in my regions, we do what we call a triple play one-to-one. And we think this is really important that for every new member you meet in BNI, I don't care if you're a 20-year member right now, for every member in BNI, you need to do a triple play one-to-one with them. So that means you meet with them 3 times and hopefully within 6 months, 3 to 6 months. First time you meet is the get to know you one-to-one. Just get to know you. So Ed and I meet for the first time, and so maybe we're doing it this way online, or maybe we're getting together and getting coffee or something like that, having lunch. So we get together and say, hey, look, I just want to get to know you. Tell me a little about you and your background. How'd you get into what you do? And tell me about your family and, where you're from. And so we just kind of talk about that. And I find, he likes that kind of sport. I like this kind of sport. We like doing, and we find out about each other. Your whole goal, the whole focus of your first one-to-one is the person to like you. That's your goal.
Like that.
At the end, you got to know the person, the character of the person. And I walk away going, I like it. He's a good guy. That's it. I'm not talking.
And vice versa, right? You
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if I can walk away doing that, then I'm willing to invest more time into our relationship. But if we have our one-to-one and Ed walks away and goes, hey, Frank, he's kind of a jerk. I didn't really like him. I don't trust him. Something about it gave me like the skivvies. I don't like the guy. That's it. I'm done pretty much. He's not giving me referrals. He's not investing any more time in our relationship because he doesn't like me. He doesn't feel good about it. So the first one is to get to know you one-to-one. Just do that. Now make your second one-to-one. So Ed and I do a second one, and this is the business education and learning one-to-one. I want to find out more about his business. Not necessarily referrals right now, but so tell me more about what exactly that you do. When you say pest control, what does that mean? What type of pests? What do you do? How did you get into this? Why did you decide against this? What do you enjoy most about it? What type of clients do you work with? Who do you like to work with? What's your target market? How does somebody know whatever? I find out all this stuff about his business. So I start to understand the business that he does. And I'm going like, okay, I get this now. I get who your client is. I understand who your referral sources are. I get when you work with a client, what you do for them, how you get paid, all these different things. So I understand the business now. And I walk away going, okay, I get it now. I like him and I understand his business. The third one-to-one, okay, that you're going to do with somebody, this is now what the referral one-to-one, or what we call, working our networks for each other in terms of that. That's really important. So this is where we're going to now, and it's what I call that from your third one-to-one on with somebody in your life of BNI, it's what I call a referral commitment meeting. I don't call it a one-to-one. It's a referral commitment meeting. We're getting together, but before we get together, we're both committing that we're going to somehow have referrals for each other. Not at the end of that meeting, but we're going to check the possibilities we might have for each other. And the goal is that I'm going to walk away with at least 2 to 3 contacts for Ed to see if I can develop those into referral for him. So what we're doing is we're working on proactive versus reactive referrals. Right? So a proactive referral is I'm proactively trying to see who I have in my network for him. Now, when we start this third one-to-one and start talking about it, don't think of it as a one-to-one. Think of it as a brainstorming session. I'm here to brainstorm with Ed, who I might know, what might be good for him, and then see what possibilities I have for him. And then he does the same for me. So as he's telling me about something, I say, okay, well, look, I understand. So if you're taking this type of business, what about this and this type of business? I know it's somebody there, but what about this industry? Have you ever been in this industry? Have you ever thought about this? Would this be a good referral for you? Would this be a good referral sort? And we start to brainstorm. And I may have a bunch of ideas that he's just like, no, no, no. And that's great, because now I know what I don't know about his business. But as I understand more about his business and I go through it, then I say, okay, so it's something like this be good. I know somebody at a company that does this. Would that be good for you? I know somebody is going through this situation. Would that be good for you? He says, yes. Okay. So now I know I have 2 or 3 possibilities for him. And then hopefully he's done that for me. So we're both leaving that meeting with the idea that we have 2 or 3 possibilities for each other. And now we're responsible to follow up with each other after that. Right? To say, hey, how you doing? How am I doing? We go back and forth and we hold each other accountable until those possibilities become a no or become yes, they're now a referral. Meaning I've spoken with that person and they said, yes, they'd like to have a conversation with Ed. So that's how we get to, when we're first starting, to to developing a referral for each other. So we have to kind of discover the referral. That's the possibilities session that we're doing, right? And then we go to develop it into a referral. Because when we do it then, it's only a contact, connection, or lead. But we're going to take that contact, connection, or lead, and now we're going to develop it together into a referral. Because I may have the guy, but I may not know, how do I talk to him or her? What do I say? What do I do? What do you think? And so Ed may need to coach me a little bit on how to do that. And he's going to help me develop it into a referral for him. So I think that's really important, that as a new member, to understand what the expectations are of the chapter, and you know what the expectations are of the chapter in your first 3 to 4 months. And then you understand what they understand what your expectation is, you understand what their expectation is. And then you focus on, let me just invest in the relationship. Let me take my first 3 to 4 months especially, but it's really that first 6 months, 9 months in BNI, continue to invest in the relationship, because you're investing all this time up front. It's what I call an upfront loaded system. Whenever you have a business, you want to do an upfront loaded system. You're putting all the work in up front, laying a strong foundation so you can build on top of that foundation. You don't take your time with that, it's not going to go forward, right? We use the analogy of a house, right? You want to have a good house, you got to start with a strong foundation. If you don't take your time with that, everything else you build will be off, it won't be good. It's the same in BNI. If you want to make good money from BNI for the next 5, 10, 20 years, start in the first year. Start in the first 3 to 6 months. And that's the beginning of the foundation that you have to continue to build and strengthen going on. And just to understand, a one-to-one is not a one-time thing. I'm going to tell you a quick funny story, then I'll get back to Ed. I was at a chapter years ago, and I went in, it was about a 35-person chapter. And I said, okay, guys, so I want to just talk to you, see how everything's going. Have you guys been doing one-to-ones? And a guy yells out, yeah, we did that. And I was like, excuse me? He said, we did that. I said, you did what? He goes, we did one-to-ones. I said, what do you mean you did one-to-ones? We did one-to-ones. I said, what do you mean you did? There's no didding one-to-one. Nobody did a one-to-one. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, you don't did a one-to-one. You do one-to-ones ongoing. I said, you have to do them all. And they're like, no. I said, so you did one-to-one with somebody. You're saying you're good now? And I said, what do you know about their business? What do you know? And we started talking about it. And we started going through and kind of talking about the different things that they know about the business. And they realized they knew very little about that
Mm.
person, about that business. So don't ever did a one-to-one. Do a one-to-one and keep doing them over and over. You may not have to do them as frequent, but especially people within your power team or your referral team, you want to be with them on a regular basis, monthly, every other month. Everyone else in the chapter, you want to make sure you're always doing it with them because you never know who knows somebody and where that's going to come from.
And that goes back to longevity in a BNI chapter, right? Because it's my new, I believe it's, I'm gonna quote it as the Ed Wilson quote. And the quote is, the short game pays the bills, the long game creates legacy. And
Yeah,
BNI is about creating that legacy. It's the long game. And that's exactly what we're talking about here.
it's really important. If you want to keep your chapter, fulfilled, you have to keep your members engaged. And you keep
Mm.
your members engaged, that's going to come through kind of how the meetings run, but it's going to come through group activities. It's going to come through one-to-ones. So if there's people in that chapter, and what you have to do is, here's my challenge to you. I want you to look at your chapter roster. And first thing I want you to do is say, who is one or two or three people you've never given a referral to?
Ooh.
Never given a referral to. Your challenge is in the next 60 to 90 days, you're giving them a referral, a qualified referral, right? I guarantee you can do this. So I'm going to give you kind of what I've said to people before, okay? If I told you, okay, I picked up one person in the chapter you've never done a referral for, and I said, if you bring this person a referral next week, a qualified referral, and it can't be you, a qualified referral for this person next week, if you bring it for them, I will give you $10,000 cash. $10,000 cash. If you bring 2 qualified referrals, $20,000. 3 qualified referrals, $30,000. Who here believes they could bring 1 qualified referral next week to receive $10,000?
That's
Right.
what I'm going to spend my week doing. I'm going to be looking with,
Right.
and I love that imagery that you just created.
Well, and Ed, I did this to a chapter, everybody's hand went up. And I said, really? You can bring him a referral. I said, well, I think that's horrible. Everybody's like, what do you mean? I was just like, he's been in the chapter for 3 years. I said, so I want to know, you 5, have you ever given a referral before? They're like, no. And I was just like, so for 3 years, you haven't given a referral, but now all of a sudden, magically, in the next 7 days, you're going to get him a referral. And they're like, yeah. I said, why? I said, well, because I'm going to focus on and make phone calls. I said, right. So the reality is, it's not that you can't give a referral. It's all about the motivation.
Ooh, yeah.
Right. So you weren't motivated before. Now you're motivated by the $10,000. So imagine if you got him a referral, forget about the $10,000. And what if he or somebody else in the chapter then gave you back a referral worth 2 to 3 times that amount? That's what you have to focus on. That's what you have to focus on, is you do that. And if you go through one-to-ones and continue to do them, you're going to find out more about each other in terms of that.
So it all starts with building the relationships in the room.
You have to build them and you have to maintain them.
Ooh.
Right. And
so wait a minute. It's not just telling my wife or my girlfriend or my child, I told them I loved you 3 years ago. That should be enough.
Exactly, right? You got to keep investing in that relationship. You got to keep putting deposits into that relationship to make sure it's going to work and go there. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. And people don't understand, as you have like these one-to-ones and you get deeper into conversations and ask more about, if you have a one-to-one and you have to stay curious, you have to stay curious about that person's business and ask more questions, you'll find out more. I was in one chapter and we're doing this kind of, it was like a dream referral workshop. We had one person stand up, say what their dream referral was. And then as the director, I worked the room. Okay, who knows somebody this? Who knows somebody? Who knows somebody? And it was like, I said, we're not looking for a referral. We're looking for just a contact, connection, or lead this person might have. And we go around the room and people produce possibilities for people. So the president and the vice president have been in the chapter together for 6 years. They're like best friends, 6 years. The president stands up, he's a chiropractor. Great referral for me would be the owner of Arnoff Moving, Michael Arnoff, because they're a moving company. I'm a chiropractor. I could help their drivers. I could help their movers. I could do this. I could go in and I could do safety things, whatever. So if anybody knows Michael Arnoff, that would be my dream referral, is to speak to him. I said, okay, great. Anybody know anybody at at Arnoff Movers? Does anybody know a driver? Two people raise, I know a driver. Okay, great. You know a driver. Great. They can help get us in. Anybody know? Yeah, I know a guy who's what's the dispatcher? Dispatcher. Good. I know a lady who works in the administration. Fantastic. That's great. And then the vice president raises his hand. And president looks down, vice president says, I play golf with Michael Arnoff about once a month. And the president says, what? You never told me that. You never told me you knew Michael Arnoff. And he looked at me and said, you never asked. Right? 6 years in the chapter, his vice president had his dream referral. Neither of them knew that. Why? They didn't get into a deeper conversation.
Well said. Oh my gosh. And that's it. Going deep in your conversations, building those relationships.
Yeah.
It's what creates it's why people get involved in being.
It's it. I mean, the one-to-one is the powerful tool to get deeper with each person in your chapter. And obviously, if you have a power team in your chapter, those are the people you need to do one-to-ones with all the time, because you're always going to find new things. In fact, I would say start doing power team meetings outside the chapter. Once a month, once every other month, have a power team meeting. All you guys get together and brainstorm, talk about what you can do, whatever, just kind of see what you can do. Go to the meeting with the idea that I'm not going to leave this meeting. At least I have at least 1 or 2 referrals for a couple of people in this group.
That's awesome.
And you know what? You'll produce more business because you have the intention now. The intention, you'll make it happen, right? I have the intention of getting a referral because next week I'm getting $10,000. You now have the intention. You didn't have that before. If you have it, you'll make it happen.
Well, and I love the triple play one-to-one. You know, the first one is the get to know you. The second one is business education and understanding. And then finally, working on the network, working on your network. I love that. So for our local San Diego people, if you're listening, know that we're going to be adding the triple play one-to-one. I love that. Frank, I know that we're going to be ending here, and I wish we could continue to go on, but I love doing those. Do you remember Columbo? Remember the old TV show Columbo?
Yeah, sure.
And what did Columbo do at the end of every episode? When he would be heading out the door, and then he'd come back with just one more thing. So in that line of thought, as we leave our audience, whether they're in San Diego or New York or Florida, wherever they are, what's one thing you really want to leave with them today as a final thought?
The key, I would say, is the key in networking and growing that relationship is to remember you never know. You never know who somebody knows, and you don't know where your next referral is going to come from. Don't judge somebody because of their profession, right? Because you're thinking, and we're really good at B&I of telling people strategically who should be aligned with business-wise, but we tend to forget about the people themselves. So there's business alliances, but there's people network alliances. And we have to understand that you never know who somebody knows. And I'll give you one quick story to kind of end this with is I was at a chapter meeting a number of years ago, first 15 minutes, again, pretty good sized chapter, 30 something people. One of the guys comes up to me and, he's wearing a suit and tie, and we're talking. He says, "Hey, Frank." He goes, "Hey, I love B&I, man. It's fantastic. This is so good." And I said, "Well, I appreciate that. It's doing really good, but I got to tell you something. I can make this better." And I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And he just said, "I think that if we could have a group that really was all kind of, like executive level people, it would really make a difference. Like Joe over there, the roofer. I mean, he's a nice guy, but I mean, what's he going to do for me? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I work with more executive level, whatever." And I said, "Oh, I never thought about that. Maybe that's a good idea." I said, well, what's the perfect referral for you?" He said, "Oh, a regional vice president of a bank would be perfect for me because what I can do is," and he explains it. And I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I don't know a regional vice president." I said, "But, okay, good to know. Thanks." And I said, "Do you know what's the Joe who has the roofing company?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Do you know his brother is the vice president of a regional bank?" He's like, "What? Are you serious?" I said, "No, I'm not serious, but you don't know that."
I love
he looks at me and he's like, "Oh." And I said, "Right." I said, "You're judging him because you think he's a roofer and he doesn't have anything for you." I said, "You don't know what his brother, sister, mom, dad, uncle, cousin, friend, or neighbor does. And you've already said he has nothing for you. And you don't know that."
Curiosity is huge.
Yeah. And he's like, "Okay, I get it." I was like, "Yeah, you might want to go build a relationship with him."
I love that phrase that I've heard Ivan use multiple times. Who do I know that you, Frank, need to know?
Mm, yep.
Oh my
Very
God.
powerful.
Okay.
Very
We're going
powerful.
to end with that because we can go on and on. But that also means, Frank, that we need to have you back multiple times. There is a plethora of topics we can talk about. You are good in so many areas. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for joining us for our podcast. And I look forward to having you back with us again.
And honestly, honored to be here. I appreciate anything you need. Anytime you want me back, be happy to do so. If you have any questions on this, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Terrific. And with that, our listeners will make sure that Frank's information is below if you want to reach out to him, have any questions or whatnot. He's got a plethora of information. Don't waste his time. Make sure it's worth the time. And Frank, again, we look forward to having you back. And for our listeners, we look forward to having you joining us next week for another amazing episode with another incredible guest. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your week.
This episode of the BNI San Diego podcast has been brought to you by Cruise Productions, a San Diego-based video production company and proud BNI member. You can find us at the intersection where business and creativity meet, or online at cruiseproductionsinc.com.